Hello there. What's going on, everyone? We've got ourselves a new FAQ for Armada. This is a big deal because we don't get FAQ documents very often, so a lot of stuff addressed in this document. We're going to run through it, but before I do that, I do want to do a little admin stuff. Let me remind you guys first that there is a new giveaway going on right now. So if you didn't already know, you can enter to win a $25 Amazon gift card. You just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. So if you like the content, go ahead and mash that subscribe button. Mash that subscribe button, or just press. You can just press it normally. That works too. No need to mash it. I don't want you to break your keyboard. But on top of that, also, I just want to do a special shout out to all of the patrons that help make this channel possible. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, there's links for it down in the description below. I'm going to be throwing up that Legion core set on Patreon very soon, and a lot more Patreon giveaways are coming. A lot of promos will be given away on there as well. So it's definitely a great place if you want to get some early access to things. A lot of people have been asking me about the Onager, the double Onager list that I just flew the other day. There's a tournament report for that up for early access on Patreon right now. So certain Patreon tiers gain early access to battle reports and videos and stuff like that. So anyway, there's a whole lot of other stuff you can check out if you want to check that out. Also, links for social media in the description below, or if you want to buy a shirt or something like that and also help support the channel in that way. All of that stuff is down in the description below, so be sure to check those links out. But enough of the admin stuff. Thanks for bearing with me. Now we're going to go ahead and dive right into this document because it's really cool to actually have an updated rules reference. So this is version 5.11. It's actually going to go into effect March 9th. So if you are planning on playing some kind of tournament during this week, I guess you can still play by the old rules for a few more days, right? But no, I mean, this is a lot of this stuff actually, some of this stuff went into effect already because of a forum posting such as the Admiral Armada'as change. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Armada'as. It's nice to actually have it updated here in the document. But basically, if you didn't already know, I talked about it before. Armada'as was changed to now have distance 1 to 2, but it has to be of view of the flagship. And this is a big deal because in previous builds, you'd have Armada'as with a whole bunch of small ships and they'd split up and you never knew where you were going to Armada'as something in. The other big change is that it has to be a ship of command value 3 or less. So a lot of people were anticipating dropping a Starhawk out of hyperspace. Not going to be able to do that with Armada'as. So it has to be a command value 3 or less, which is reasonable. I don't really have a problem with that. It's not a big deal. But another cool thing about this Armada'as is that since you have distance 1 to 2, you do have at least one small thing that's good, is that you extended the range a little bit. It gives you kind of a new way to maybe run profundity, because now you can put Armada'as onto the little small ship that was docked in profundity and then drop it 1 to 2 of that ship, because Armada'as will now be on the docked ship. So there's a little bit of, I think Armada'as is a little more fun now, but a little bit more predictable. But they kind of tempered just how predictable he's going to be. Some changes to hyperspace migration. I think the big change to that is that you can only score once every other turn. So you're going to have a choice on that one. I don't really play hyperspace migration very much. So I think I don't think I've run that one at all. It's been a choice, and I've always gone for something else. So, but basically, for a lot of people, hyperspace migration was very, very popular, and so I think they've kind of nerfed it down to just being good. Onager class Star Destroyer. They're talking about extreme range because you've got the ignition, and it's just clarifying stuff that they've already basically stated that just wasn't officially written down anywhere, and that the evade now cancels 2 dice of the defender's choice as the default effect of the evade. Now, this will stack with other things like the Foresight title for the MC30, I think it is the name of the title, that says when you do evade, it can affect 1 additional die. The way that's worded, crystal clear. That makes it, if you're at extreme range, that means that evade can now do 1 additional. So 2 plus 1 would be 3 dice. I get a lot of questions about that. So yes, that is still going to be a 3rd dice. There's a couple of things about Rebellion in the Rim. The Exogorth, each players are going to do an anti-squadron attack, starting with the second player, was choosing one of the Exogorths, and they're going to do it at distance 1. That's highlighted in bold. I'll be honest with you, I don't remember what it was before this change, but I don't think that one's quite as significant. But yeah, so let's see. During setup, obstacles must be placed in the setup area beyond distance 3 of players' edges. I don't even understand why this is different, unless specified by the objective. Okay, so just a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of things that actually address campaign-related specifics. So there's a lot of Rebellion in the Rim campaign-related updates right here. So you can check those out. I'm not going to go into those as much as I don't do a whole lot of campaign play, but I think these are things that are going to come up during your campaigns, and they're going to answer those questions. But there's also one for Corellian conflict as well. The Super Star Destroyer, they do talk about the Super Star Destroyer setup, and they're clarifying that it does have to touch the rear edge. I mean, it does if you're going to want it to extend past. You can still put it like totally sideways if you want. I don't recommend doing that. I definitely don't. Okay, an interesting one. So this one is actually really, really interesting, and this is on page 7 of the FAQ. Because this came up, and this is something I used to play wrong. It was corrected to me, I think, by somebody at Gen Con this year, and I have since been, like, as it comes up, been like trying to educate others that this was the ruling, but it's good to see it written down. So, and it basically boils down to if you got a concentrate fire dial and you've got a concentrate fire token, right? I love the fact that you can roll your dice first and see if you want to do concentrate fire on this attack, or maybe save it for the next attack. Nothing wrong with that. But the problem comes in when you try to stretch that too far apart. Like if you're going to say, you know what, I'm going to add a die. Oh, you know what? I got everything I want. I'm not going to spend the token. I'll save the token for the next attack. No. Before you do it, you have to say exactly what you're going to do. Here's the thing. You can't do 2 concentrate fire commands during your activation, right? If you're going to do the command, you're going to do the command with just the dial, with just the token, or with just the dial and the token. Well, that's not a just. So I was with the dial and the token. It's going to be one of 3. There's only 3 ways to do a concentrate fire command. It's dial only, token only, or both. So as soon as you do a concentrate fire command, as soon as you're resolving it, you've got to state which one you're going to do. And technically, this is true for all of the other ones as well. But the other ones, it's a lot more simple. So in this case, you have to say whether or not you're going to want to do the reroll before you add a die to your pool if you want to do both of them, if you've got everything. And it's just kind of spelling that out. So you can't, you can opt to add, just add a die and not spend your token, save your token for maybe next turn, or to trigger, pay the cost of some other card. That's totally fine. But you can't then add the die and be like, oh, it came up blank. Now I want to spend the token. No, you had to say that before you rolled the die. So it makes the concentrate fire dial plus token combo a little less optimal as far as flexibility than some people had been playing it. But I like that it's clarified, so nobody has to take my word for it anymore. It's spelled out right here. So after a ship discards a raid token assigned to it, can a ship resolve that command during the same activation? Yes, if they've got if they have the ability to trigger the other command, because you might have spent a token to cancel the thing, and then you can do your dial, or you might have a Thrawn dial, and they're spelling out that there's a lot of Thrawn related FAQs. For example, when a player resolves an effect that allows them to change a face-down command dial to an opponent's ship, is the player allowed to see what commands were previously set? And the answer is yes. This one has come up a couple of times, and there's been a lot of discourse. And when people are like, no, it just says you get to set my dial. It doesn't say you get to look at it. And we're like, well, how can I set your dial if I don't look at it? I'm like, I don't want you touching my dial. You can tell me what it needs to be. But then the back and forth was like, well, then how can I know if you did it? And one of the things we kind of, in-house, like home rules came up with is like, all right, if you really don't want me to see your dial, fine. I'm going to set you, like slicer tools, for example. I'll set you to a squadron command. All right. And then they set it, and then they can show you that it's now a squadron command. But the question is, what were you planning? What were you planning? Because I used to always say, I think I get to look at your dial before I decide to change it or not. And of course, yes, you do gain the knowledge. So I like that they clarified this. You do get, it is revealed. And that's good. That's good to know. All right. So what else do we get here? When a ship is deployed, does its shield dial need to be within the fleet's deployment zone? No. So if you're trying to get that ship sideways and like the dial sticks over the 3, you're okay. You're okay there. So here's an interesting one. And this one, I don't know if I think this one is setting it straight. But does a squadron with relay need to be at close to medium range of the ship that's activating squadrons so the squadrons can activate? That sounds pretty standard, right? Like they nerfed relay a while back. It says, yes, the relay squadron must be in range to be activated by that ship. But that ship's squadron activation range can also be affected by other cards, such as boosted comms. Here's the thing. Here's my follow-up question. What if I got a relay chain going, right? Can I think you can. I think you can, have one, let's say lambda. I can have one lambda that's just at the edge of medium range. Or let's say I've got boosted comms, and I've got one lambda at long range. And I got another lambda beyond that, and then I got a TIE fighter beyond that. Can I eventually hit the TIE? I think you can, because it says that it can be affected by other things. But then again, at the same time, it says, do you have to be at close to medium range? And it says yes, but I think at the same time, it's like, well, yes, most of the time, but it's the but that gets you there. So I think you can still do a chain, but let me know if you think that, if you interpret that as like no, it must be the squadron, or yeah. Anyway, I don't know why. I really don't know why this one had to get put in here. Can a ship equip more than one title upgrade card? No. I mean, come on, man. Why did that have to? Who was the person that put? I mean, maybe somebody just pointed out. Look. It doesn't say I can't do it. Right? I don't know. So there. The funny thing is, there are certain things that we just assume to be common sense. And it's not until somebody shines a light on it that we realize it might not have been so, common. We just all happen to know things. Is a ship or squadron that's destroyed an enemy ship or squadron but retreated into hyperspace eligible to become a veteran? Okay, now this is, and yes, they can. This is part of Corellian conflict. I'm not going to go over all of the, again, all the campaign-based stuff, because this is a lot of campaign-based stuff for the all-out assault. This one's kind of interesting here. Can the fleet commands cards be resolved by any ship in a fleet in the same team? Non-commander upgrades refer to friendly can be by any. Yeah, within that's yeah. I think that was the way we've always played it. Same thing if you got home one on there. It's not your commander, so you can give accuracies to your teammates. That's the way we've always played it. And then more stuff for rebellion in the rim. Let's see. New obstacles, dust fields. When an objective requires a dust field to be placed, may the player choose the preferred shapes from multiple sets that include dust fields. No, the players must add the dust field tokens from one campaign expansion. The shapes for the pair of dust field obstacles in Rebellion in the Rim are the same as those in the Corellian conflict. So you can't add like, I want to add this goofy one from here and the same goofy one from there. So you got to add the same pair. That's that's a weird one. I guess that could have happened by accident. Maybe I only carry one. But yeah, so we've got a lot of the stuff for Rebellion in the Rim there with Exgorths and Purgils, the refit and expanded fleets, the command ships, and we've got a lot of that. Now we got some things to objectives here. Now this one, at first it took me through a loop. I had to actually ask in the Armada Discord because I read it incorrectly the first time. So just in case it happens to you guys, advanced gunnery added here. If the first player's objective ship is equipped with impetuous or ordnance pods, its hull zone cannot target the same squadron more than once during that ship's activation. That's the one that normally would let you attack again. Basically, impetuous is the raider title that lets you attack again, at least one squadron at the end of your activation, and then ordnance pods lets you do an entire anti-squadron attack with a battery armament of one black die at the end of your activation. And they even say it can be out of an arc you've already fired out of. However, I was like, wait a second. So are they making advanced gunnery worse for the? It's for the first player, all right? Because second player normally lets you, attack multiple times. Advanced gunnery is always worse for the first player because it's like if you have already got gunnery teams, you definitely wouldn't put it on here because it's pretty restrictive. But yeah, and so anything that says cannot is going to you can't target the same squadron or hull zone. Yeah, so that's basically that works. So blockade run, it does basically say that even if you get flotillas, even if you're tabled, but you can still score your flotillas that are in there. So that's kind of cool. And then Rift Assault, when the attacker resolves a special rule effect to discard an objective token from the defender, they must change a die as specified for that player. Surprise attack. During setup, the station can be placed beyond or overlapping the first player's deployment zone. While deploying fleets, if the player's flagship is a huge ship, I like that they didn't say a Super Star Destroyer, a huge ship, because I just feel like this. I feel like the Malevolence has to be something that they're going to make with the Clone Wars, right? And I'm going to talk more about the Clone Wars in a follow-up video eventually, so stay tuned for that. It must overlap the station. It must also touch the player's edge if able. So if you got a, for now, I'm just going to use a Super Star Destroyer for example, because this is one where you have to have a ship overlapping the station, so it kind of catches your flagship kind of out of position. But if it's a Super Star Destroyer, you're like, oh, I can just deploy it here and then it can go anywhere. No, it still has to touch your back edge, if possible. If not possible, then it has to touch as far back as it can. So that can be really bad for a Super Star Destroyer, because it can end up way out of position. Of course, unless it's got Jar Jarrod, and then you're fine. Because, I mean, of course, Jar Jarrod's the man. Capture the VIP. I guess somebody tried to say, hey, if I just fly my objective ship completely off the board, then the token's removed. And like, no. It's, you put it as close to as you could. Fleet ambush. This was one that I had asked a long time ago when starting to theorize about the Super Star Destroyer. I'm glad they finally answered this one. And that's basically if you fill up the board with obstacles in such a way that the Super Star Destroyer cannot fit in the ambush zone, then what do you do? Are you dead on turn one? And they have clarified this as if you can't fit in there, fit the best you can, basically. You fit as much of the ship as possible. So both players have to agree. Whichever placement puts the largest amount of the ship, mostly in there, that's where it would have to go. So that can be still really bad. Basically, don't take fleet ambush if you're running like a one ship SSD list. You just don't do that, or do it and suffer. I mean, heck, maybe you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. That's bad. Navigational hazards. If an obstacle is overlapped by a ship or squadron is moved, the ship or squadron remains in its current position after the obstacle is moved. If an obstacle cannot be moved because it would overlap ships, you can leave it in place or rotate it. That's one of the, you're going to see that a couple of times throughout here. Like basically anything referring to trying to move obstacles. If you can't because they would overlap something else, you can stay where they are or rotate them. Same thing here for Doomed Station. There's a whole lot of that. Solar Corona. An interesting little distinction on Solar Corona. If, let's say, anything that lets you add dice to the roll attack, to your dice pool, as long as you rolled one die and you could make the attack, let's say, for example, I've got a CR90's side arc shot on you. I only get one red die, but I've got Akbar, so I'm going to be able to add two. And I got a Concentrate Fire. But then that first die roll, if it's an accuracy, and it has to go away because of Solar Corona, somebody probably asked the question, is the attack negated? And no, because you already have an attack pool. You've already rolled dice. And basically they're specifying you can still add dice to this thing. However, that add dice. Now, if you only have a Concentrate Fire, or if you only have something that adds dice of the same color that's in your attack pool, however, since you all now have nothing in your attack pool, you may have to get, you may need to get a die of any color first, or a specific color, like Akbar would still work there. Hyperspace migration, they're talking about, this is just a doubling down on the, they've already updated hyperspace migration. You can score every other round. Let's see, we're going down a little bit. IG-88B has to attack escorts that's rough. So he doesn't get to bypass the escort rule, which he used to kind of be able to do, I guess. So I don't think escort really came up with. I think it came up at one point and we weren't sure. So we picked a way and kind of went with it. But yeah, that really hurts IG-88B because now he can do Death Blossom and all I got was Luke. I had to shoot Luke. Okay, well I just shot Luke and that was it. So that's rough. So now, if he does kill the escort squadron, like if Luke has got only one health left and he kills Luke, then he can continue declaring additional targets. So like that's kind of cool. You got to do all the escorts first, and then if they're dead, then you're done. Some interesting Darth Vader based stuff. So like if you use Darth Vader to get rid of certain cards like Aspiration or Bail Organa or Governor Price, you don't still get to use their abilities. Aspiration, if you buff up your side shields and Darth Vader kills it, well then all of a sudden, boom, your side shields are immediately lost. Which is interesting. I wonder if the new Nebulon fix, if that card is in here too. I didn't see it before. All right, let's scroll back up before I get rid of some things. Cham Syndulla, same thing with Slicer Tools. You do get to see what those dials were. Commander Beck is just clarifying that, yes, you can treat it, you can combine it with a dial. Defiance, it can be any color. I think it already said that. Yeah, I think this one was just a common sense one, but I think they just explained it because somebody probably complained. But yeah, you can add a die of any color regardless of range. I've always played it that way. So there's some, the Chimera, if you remove the Chimera title, they do not lose the upgrade, the fleet command upgrade that they've got, but they do lose the ability to swap because that's on the card. Let's see. Engine text, the ship cannot use its nav command effects to increase yaw values during this maneuver. So that's, I think that was pretty much understood already, but there's so many nav command effects that I think it's good that they clarified that. I think the only thing you can still do with engine text is something that doesn't refer to the nav command or whatever your current speed is, because I think you can still Gergerod during engine text. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to. So I mean, I'm certainly going with that. So things like that you could probably still do. The Executor, common sense one. If you got multiple engineering tokens, let's say you got 4 engineering tokens at the end of turn 4, turn 5 comes, you pop an engineering dial. No, you don't get to spend all those engineering tokens and do a massive heal. It doesn't work that way. You can still only spend 1 command at a time and only do 1 command, per of each type per turn. So Executor is not going to do all that craziness. It's clarifying how the G8 experimental projector works. I don't think there's any change there. I think that's just clarification. And a lot of these are just and they're good clarification, definitely. A lot of stuff about Thrawn. They're talking about this is a big one, and I think a lot of the competitive players have already been playing it the same way, so I don't think it's a change, but this one might be a change to some casual folks that weren't sure exactly how the Thrawn interactions worked. A Thrawn dial basically is not a revealed dial. It's a given dial, right? So it doesn't count as your ship revealing a dial. So like for a Superstar Destroyer, you're not revealing a dial. You're not going to get a token with a Thrawn dial. You're just going to get the dial itself. Little things like that. So there's a whole lot of text there. I'll leave that for you to read. Governor Price, same thing. If Vader gets rid of her, you don't also get to, you don't get to still do her stuff. Let's see. Impetuous, they're going after that again. Tua, basically, the rule with Impetuous is the same for gunnery teams or whatever. That we already talked about that before. The rule with Tua is the same with Chimera. Anything that grants you an upgrade card slot, that's for list building. You have that upgrade if you put something on there. If you lose Tua or whatever granted you an extra slot, you don't also lose what's in there if it happens in the middle of the game. Linked turbo lasers. The ship with this card equipped can resolve this effect during any of its anti-squadron attacks, but it can only resolve it once during its activation. If the ship resolves this effect during an additional attack granted by another effect, such as ordnance pods, it cannot declare additional squadrons during that attack. Wait. This one, all right, I'm going to read that again, because this one I actually glossed over. Before I read everything, the ship with this card effect can resolve this effect during any of its anti-squadron attacks. Okay, there's 2 different effects here. Re-rolling a red die in your attack pool is great, but it can only resolve it once during its activation? I don't think that makes sense. If you can only re-roll, because if you double arc somebody, you can re-roll twice. If the ship resolves this effect during an additional attack... So are they nerfing linked turbo lasers so you can only use it once per activate? That makes it much worse. Maybe not much, but that makes it significantly worse. And which effect are they talking about? Because the second effect is very specific on its timing. Wow. So if that's the case, if linked turbo lasers can only be used once per activation, I'm assuming you can still use it during a salvo because that's not your activation. And if the ship resolves this effect during an additional attack granted by another effect, such as ordnance pods, it cannot declare additional squadron targets during that attack. Well, ordnance pods doesn't give you a red, so I think they're talking about the second part. All right. So I'm really this actually I had no questions about how to use linked turbo lasers before this entry, because look, linked turbo lasers is there it is. You may re-roll one red die in your attack pool. This first part you should be able to use over and over again. Like every time, there's nothing that's... I'm really getting annoyed with this one. I'm going to just move on, and maybe we'll... I have to ask for an FAQ to the FAQ. While attacking the first squadron... Now, this is the part, right? While attacking the first squadron during your activation. So this is what I don't understand, because they're saying you can use it during any of its anti-squadron attacks. Any of its anti-squadron attacks. But here it has to be during the first squadron during your activation. So, why not just change the wording of the card if you're going to say that it can work at any time? This whole entry doesn't make sense. So that's what I'm saying. Or maybe I'm just being really simple and confused here. You guys can let me know what you think. Maybe we can start a little discussion. Let me know in the comments below, or you can let me know in my Discord as well. But yeah, not a big fan of how the linked turbo lasers is working there. Ordnance pods, they already clarified that. Slicer tools, again, it's just the same thing. You get to look at the card. Strategic advisor, you have to be able to activate the ship in order to do it. So it has to be unactivated and not locked out, like it couldn't be off the board or something like that. Targeting scrambler, if you've got two interdictors, you can potentially use multiple copies of this card. However, you can't have two targeting scramblers on the same ship. Yavaris can't also then turn around and move after it does its thing. A lot of stuff was just common sense. The big takeaway for me is, a lot of the stuff we already knew. Some of the stuff was clarified, but I'm really most annoyed with the linked turbo laser thing. So I'm going to do a little more research on this, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But yeah, if they're saying you only get one reroll during your activation, then the value for this card has gone significantly downward. That's a big shame, because I liked having two shots. I liked being able to use side arc and front arc and get a reroll on both of them. Like every other card that's worded the same way goes. I don't Maybe I'm missing something. It's okay. I'm also a flawed human being, and sometimes I have reading comprehension problems, but that's what I got you guys for. All right, well, that's all I've got for you today. I'm going to put a link to this again in the description below. So if you like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I want to give a big shout out to the patrons again. You guys are amazing and definitely help make this possible. So thank you so much for your continued support. If you're interested in supporting the channel, Patreon is one way you can do that. T-shirts, subscribe, social media following, all that other stuff also helps out as well. Thank you so much, and as always, have a great day.